Okay, thank you. Can I bring the committee to order? Thank you very much. Welcome, a warm welcome for those attending and viewers watching live on the Council YouTube website, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Higgins. I'm the chairman of this committee. Details of business are to be considered today are shown on the agenda, and copies of which are accessible online under the live broadcast, and there's clicks on there if you want to see the addendum. For those present in the room and intending to speak, please note that you will be filmed and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. And reminder that anyone speaking today, that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. So I'll have to remember to turn it on myself, which is a good one. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if there is one, please follow officers out of the room. Mobile and tablet devices, I use mine to write on and notes and stuff like that, and other members of the committee use it to view agendas. But if you do have a mobile phone, please turn it to silent or turn it off if you can. We go through the attendees before we move to the agenda. Councillor Adam Bennett, my Vice Chairman, welcome. Councillor Jazz Dott, Councillor Shiri Walana, I'll wait for apologies. Councillor Hector Gohill, Councillor Elizabeth Garlick, and welcome Councillor Singh. Officers, a warm welcome to Hurst Committee with Grace Lee here, my Area Planning Service Manager, Michael Bringshaw, my Deputy Team Leader, Mike Kemp, Richard Mikowski, Highways Engineer, I think I got that right, Salo Joby, my Legal Advisor, and the person that's most important is Anisha here, who keep me in order and make sure that I'm doing everything correctly and I haven't forgotten anything. So we go straight to the agenda. Apologies for absence, Anisha. Yeah, of course.
Apologies from Councillor Roy Chamdal with Councillor Ahmed Walana substituted, and apologies from Councillor Sansapuri with Councillor Singh substituted. Thanks. Okay,
any declarations of interest and matters to be coming before this meeting? No? To receive the minutes of the previous meeting, those agreed? Agreed. Great, thank you. Matters that have been notified advance are urgent, there are none, and to confirm that all items are in part 1 and there's nothing to be considered in part 2. Okay, so we go to the first item, which is the with a petition, which is for Napier Close. Whenever you're ready, Michael.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This application is at number 4 Napier Close, West Drayton. The application's for the erection of a single-storey wraparound extension to the side and rear of the property and amendments to the fenestrations. Just before I begin the presentation, we have received a representation from the applicant's planning agent in support, which is intended to respond to the various public comments. And in summary, the agent has specified that the scale of developments would be commensurate with the size of the property and the design in keeping with the character of the close, and has been carefully designed to limit the impact on the adjoining neighbours. It would be intended that the proposal would provide living space as a family home rather than use as an HMO. The parking spaces associated with the property would be retained and are considered adequate for the size of the extended dwelling. So just continuing with the presentation, this is the site location plan in red. So 4 Napier Close is a 2-storey end of terrace property located in a residential cul-de-sac in a primarily residential part of West Drayton to the southeast of the town centre. The property is set back from the road behind a front driveway and benefits from a sizable rear garden. Site constraints plan shows that there are no notable statutory planning constraints on the site. And this is just another version of the site location plan. And this shows the existing site plan. Turning to the existing floor plans, the existing property is a 3-bedroom dwelling. The property has previously been extended by 3 metres at ground floor level. Beyond this is a further canopy structure, and the photos of these extensions in the later slides that I'll present in a moment. Neither benefit from planning permission, although the kitchen extension at 3 metres in depth would have been permitted development at the time, and both structures have been in place since 2017 and are now lawful development. Together, the 2 structures measure 5.5 metres in cumulative depth. Several representations refer to the property being in use as an HMO. However, when officers visited the property, there was insufficient evidence to substantiate this claim. The property is not listed on the Council's HMO register, and the planning agent has asserted in writing that the property is in use as a single dwelling. Following the adoption of the Article 4 direction by the Council in December last year, any use of a property as an HMO would require planning permission. It's not what's being proposed within this application, which deals only with extensions to the dwelling. A lawful development certificate was granted in January 2026 for the conversion of roof space to habitable use. These works have not been carried out. However, the certificate confirms that the conversion of the loft to habitable space may be carried out without planning permission. Here we see the existing elevations of the property. Most apparent probably from the side elevation. You can see the 3 metre extension to the property and the further canopy structure beyond this. So this is the proposed site plan. So the proposal involves the demolition of the existing rear extension, secondary structures and erection of a side and rear extension extending 4.5 metres beyond the rear of the dwelling, with a side extension projecting 1 metre beyond the side wall of the house. The floor plans on this slide indicate that an additional bedroom and kitchen living space would be provided. And since the publication of the report, officers have received amended floor plans. The only change within those amended floor plans relates to the labelling of the ground floor room, which is located to the right of the stairs, which is being labelled on the revised plans as a study. Just to note that condition 2 should be revised to account for this new plan number, which will be 4NC/HH02 Rev 1. So the footprint of the existing extension and secondary structure to the rear of the property should be taken into consideration where considering the impact of the amenity of number 6 Napier Close. The depth of the extensions adjacent to the boundary of this property would be less than the existing additions to number 4. So just look at the proposed elevations. The extensions would feature a flat roof and would extend up to a maximum height of 3 metres. Accounting for the depth of the extension and its north orientation in relation to number 6 Napier Close, it's considered that the extension would not result in a substantial loss of light, nor would the extension appear overbearing in relation to this property. The side extension would be the only element that would be significantly prominent in public views, and the width of the side extension is subordinate to the main dwelling and acceptable in visual terms and would not undermine the amenity of number 2 Napier Close to the side of the site, accounting for its position and limited projection. So this is an aerial plan just showing the site, and here we see a photo of the front elevation of the property. Side extension will be located on the right hand side of the house within this image. And this shows the rear elevation of the property taken from the relatively deep rear garden. You can see here the single story extension that's being constructed already, plus the structure that's bolted onto that at the back. So to conclude and summarise proposals as a whole, the extensions are considered to be appropriately designed and would harmonise with the appearance of the existing property. The proposals are considered to comply with the relevant policies in the local plan, London plan and MPPF as set out in the officer's report. So the application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions listed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, we have a petitioner, David Leach. Yes, would you like to come to the table? You have 5 minutes. 4 minutes will be, 3 minutes will be green, 1 will be yellow, and red will be when I tell you to stop. And please don't be offended, but I will tell you to stop. Okay, so as soon as you press the button in front of you on the microphone at the bottom, and that red light comes on, then we will put the timer on. There you go.
Right, ready? Yep, right. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for letting me speak today. I am speaking against this planning proposal. First and foremost, the proposed wraparound extension would have significant impact on neighbouring homes, particularly in terms of loss of light and overbearing impact. Napier Close is a quiet residential cul-de-sac with modest family homes set relatively close together. A wraparound extension of the scale proposed would project heavily along the boundary and into the rear garden space. For neighbouring residents, this would create a sense of enclosure and overshadowing that is simply not in keeping with the existing layout of the street. Planning policy seeks to protect neighbours from exactly this type of overdevelopment. This proposal would dominate the outlook of adjoining properties and reduce the amount of natural daylight reaching neighbouring gardens and rear windows. Secondly, the proposal is out of character with the surrounding properties. The homes in Napier Close are traditional family houses with relatively simple footprints. A large wraparound extension would fundamentally alter the scale and appearance of the property, creating a form of development that does not reflect the established pattern of the street. Thirdly, there are serious concerns regarding parking and the intensity of use of this property. Residents have observed that this house does not operate as a typical single-family dwelling. Instead, there have been different occupants regularly coming and going, including unrelated couples and small groups staying for relatively short periods of time. Turnover of occupants has been frequent, sometimes every few months. This has led to increased vehicle movements and pressure on parking in what is already a tight residential cul-de-sac. I dispute that these individuals are family members and believe the landlord should give proof that they are family members. Otherwise, it just could be in writing, no proof. There have been so many comings and goings from this property, it has clearly been used like an HMO. This proposal adds more bedrooms downstairs, and with the past behaviour of renting, there is clear signs of intention to continue the use of HMO-style lettings. In addition, residents have experienced other activities at the property that have caused concern. Until last month, business like mechanical work was carried out from the front garden, which is not appropriate for a quiet residential street. There is also an existing wooden structure that was erected without planning permission, wrapped in plastic, and in the past was used as a smoking room, but now used as storage. This structure highlights a pattern where development has taken place first and permissions are considered later. The strength of local concern is clear. 9 written objection letters have been submitted by residents of the street, alongside a petition demonstrating wider concern from those directly affected. Finally, I would like to place on record that no party rule consent or permission has been sought from adjoining neighbours, despite the proximity of the proposed works to shared boundaries. For all these reasons, the loss of light, the overbearing nature of the extension, the harm to the character of the street, parking pressures and the existing concerns regarding how the property is being used, residents respectively ask the committee to refuse this application. If you do approve the application, I will be keeping a close eye on what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Very precise and thing. Before you go, does anybody have any questions for... No? No? You may take your seat. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Is the applicant agent here? No. Mr. Soder? No? Okay, fine. So, Councillor Sweeting, would you like to speak? Would you like to come to the thing? To the table? And as you're aware, you have 3 minutes.
Yes.
So, whenever you start, let us know.
I speak in support of the petitioners and respectfully ask the committee to take into account the planning reasons why this application should be refused. The petitioners have sought to highlight the many issues which make this application unacceptable, these being loss of light, overshadowing, out of keeping, creating precedent, impact of current use as a non-registered HMO becoming permanent, as well as parking pressures. The Planning Officer's report seeks to answer all of these issues with the comment that the proposal would not be a substantial development impact, which means by default that negative impact is acknowledged. However, the Officer's response to the points raised in the petition cannot get around the fact that the proposal would wrap around the rear elevation at a projection of 4.5 metres, greater than that allowed by permitted development and against policy DMHD1, which discourages rear extensions exceeding 3.6 in depth. That the proposal is up for approval is due solely to the fact that there is a wooden canopy projecting out some 5.5 metres, so the overbearing, overdevelopment and loss of light issues described by the petitioners fail due solely to what is there now, which was built without planning permission and which would have been subject to enforcement, and which has already affected neighbours substantially. It is an eyesore created as an outside smoking area within a property which neighbours have seen being used by a constant change of people. Although the officer's report says that there is no conclusive evidence of this HMO use, neighbours confidently report otherwise. Approving this application would be awarding permission on the basis of previous bad behaviour, as all the reasons for approval stem from an illegal construction only made legal by the passing of time. The proposed structure will permanently deliver loss of outlook, loss of light, and will be overbearing. A flimsy wooden canopy would be replaced with a permanent brick wall. Finally, on the issue of parking, this heavily congested cul-de-sac is already a parking nightmare, which has pavement parking and which any additional bedrooms at 4 Napier will only exacerbate, as currently there is no legal parking of cars, as there is no proper dropped curb, an issue which the council is currently investigating. So any extra bedrooms will equal more people and more cars. When in the fullness of time this property comes back to this committee under the new Article 4 directive for an HMO, I hope it remembers the decision you are about to make this evening. I would also like for you to visit the site to see for yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Yes, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Sweeting. It was just a question to say, has antisocial behaviour or planning enforcement been made aware of the resident concerns around the alleged use of the property as an unauthorised HMO?
I believe so, but I think the whole thing has become heightened with this planning application. It was a permitted development within the roof space, which really put a sort of a finger on what might well be happening. But no, I think the residents of Napier have really come to the conclusion that they need to keep reporting these issues, which are of considerable concern. You've only got to see the route in to this property and the damage to the pavement going into the property, because there is no dropped curb.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. Can you explain, in your opinion, how would this proposed site extension will interfere with the daylight and privacy? Thank you.
What's there at the moment is a flimsy structure. It's 5.5 metres in depth, but most of that is flimsy. So it does allow some light through, but what is going to be proposed by this planning application is for a brick wall instead of a flimsy, almost open canopy. It will be different from what's there at the moment.
Any other questions? No, I'd just like to say that there is no record of any enforcement on this property, and for residents, I suggest that you report it as soon as possible straight to the council. If your councillors, or report it to your council to send it to us, because it hasn't come through at the moment. Okay. Okay.
It only came through to me very recently.
I have to give what's on the record here, and there's no record of any enforcement. So if all the residents want to, have to report it into the council, then we can do something with it. On that, sorry, Councillor Gohill, you wanted to add?
Sorry, Chair, it's got a last-minute question there. Thank you, Councillor Sweeting, for your presentation. Can you just point out on the image, if possible, where the light would come through on that flimsy structure, because it looks opaque to me. So I just would like a bit of clarity, if possible.
Well, sorry, it's to the right. The property next door, which is attached, is the one that creates, has been creating the problem. To the left, no, but to the right, yes.
Okay. Also, confusing me with things. Mike will pick up on the fact that they've got to make a decision, haven't they? They've got to either have the planning permission or the lawful. They can't have both. Is that correct?
You could construct both, because the law for development is for loft conversion, so it wouldn't interfere with the single-storey rear extension. Just to point out as well, it's the permanent structure that's 3 metres in depth, and then the bolt-on timber additions 2.5 metres in depth. So the temporary sort of timber structure is not 5.5 metres in depth.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Take take a seat. Okay, so, bring it to committee. Who wants to? Councillor Bennett.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I was just looking through Google Street View, and I can see what the problem when we talk around the drop curbs is probably something for Richard maybe to take offline. That actually there are a couple of houses that on Napier Close that have had drop curbs installed, but probably a dozen that do have driveways that are sort of just bumping their cars up the pavement. I guess the challenge is the 4 Napier Close is one of those properties, as is the one next door and several others, so you can't really single this property out as being problematic in that regard. And at least, if in terms of the parking concerns, there is off-street parking provision with the kind of makeshift driveway that they've got for a couple of vehicles. I suppose I just wanted to maybe ask you to just clarify around one of Councillor Sweeting's comments, the permitted development versus illegal structure. So just so that we're clear on what is currently there, is that illegal, or was it actually constructed lawfully under permitted development rights?
So what would have been there at the time would not have been lawful. However, by the passage of time, the development has become lawful, and that's by virtue of how long it's been there for. So it is lawful at the moment. We wouldn't be able to take enforcement action on it.
So, and I guess that's because it hasn't been reported to the council to take enforcement action previously.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Forgot to turn my microphone off. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you. May I ask the officers how many car parking places are available there after the extension?
There's 2 car parking spaces on the site.
Okay, Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you. Just another question about the sort of sunlight and the particularly raised in the petitioners and the councillors' sort of speeches was the issue of sunlight, and I just wanted to ask, in your professional opinions, how comfortable you are with the perceived loss of light to the neighbouring properties.
The status of the existing extensions is a material fallback position. Obviously they're resulting in a loss of light to the properties at the moment. The properties are in a north orientation in relation to the adjacent properties, which means that the impact on sunlight would not be as significant taking the sun path, which would be going south direction. So that would be a consideration as well.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair, if I could come back. I'd like to go ahead and propose this application in support of officers' recommendations.
Thank you very much.
From what I've seen, I think aside from the issues of potential HMOs, which I won't comment on because it's officers have done their investigation. If it comes back duly to this committee, then we'll look at that at that point. But based on what I've seen in officers' recommendations, I think they're robust enough to give sufficient approval to this. So I'd like to propose that, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I would also, I think for the petitioner, definitely, if you suspect that the construction is not being undertaken versus what's been approved, definitely report it. I think in the case of this rear extension, the learning is here that we could have taken action if we'd have known about it at the time, but because of the passage of time now, it is perfectly lawful and then becomes much trickier for us to not be able to approve this. And I suppose just as well give confidence around the HMO that if it was to become, I suppose 2 things. If it was to become a lawful HMO, it would need to come back for approval, and if it is, we can take enforcement action if the allegations that it's operating as an HMO in breach of licence are founded, and hopefully Councillor Sweeting picked that up. So I'd be happy to second the approval of the application.
Thank you very much. So it's proposed and seconded. Can I show hands those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Girling, do you want? Of course, you may, of course.
So I noticed that in the documents themselves, we don't have the total square area of the original property. So just to compare, could we have the overall size of the original property and the extensions which are added on.
It's not confirmed on the plans. I can try and get an answer.
You can show the outline. We'll show the outline on the drawing. There.
There, you can see where the structure is shaded.
See where the structure is shaded is where the existing property is. Correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, but we don't know how many square meters was original.
Well, we don't. Well, it's the same size as the dwelling next door, with just that extra bit on the back, basically.
Because I think for those purposes, where we consider the bulk and the extension,
yeah, but it
would be helpful to know.
There's no real bulk on here. This is just like the drawing shows. It's not like one of the other properties that we have. There's not much land around that site anyway. So you can indicate where the property used to be by the shaded areas where the new extension will be. So that was the size of the property before, and then the new drawing next to it will show the size of it now. So it's not over bulk because it's within the 3.5.
Yeah, I mean there isn't a statutory limit on the number of square metres you can extend by. It's a matter of judgment really based on the size of the property and whether we think the extensions are subordinate in terms of the depth and in terms of the height of the extensions.
So the footprint could be increased by, let's say, 100%? So that's the only addition.
Because the grey area is lawful, remember. Okay, so that's lawful because that wasn't reported. Okay, so over 10 years...
So only the latest addition we are
so
counting.
10 years that hasn't been reported, now it's there. They can have that, you can't do anything about that.
Okay.
So the only little bit of white bit is what we're arguing
It's additional now.
which is legible, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So I'm proposing... To the residents, please report it. You report it. This was reported 10 years ago. We wouldn't be in this situation. Well, if it comes back to be a HMO, it has to have a licence, and we'll go from there. Well, we'll see. Well, that's if it gets approved. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. No, they have to. Okay, thank you very much. Of course I do. Thank you very much. Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Waste of time. I'm sorry you felt that way, dear. Anyway, we'll go to the next item, item 7. Change of chairs. Michael, you've got your correct plate whenever you're ready.
Good. Thank you, Chairman. So before I start, just quickly, please be advised that there is an addendum for this item, and it includes some minor updates to condition wording, Section 106 obligations, and in addition to the consultation summary, basically outlining what the GLA's position is on the scheme. So item 7 relates to Hyde Park Hayes 2, Hyde Park Hayes 5, which are both under-occupied office buildings, as well as a surface car park land to the north, and associated multi-storey car park to the south. From now onwards, I probably will abbreviate Hyde Park Hayes to HPH. So it will be HPH 2 and 5, the buildings to be demolished. Multi-storey car park might be MSCP as well, just for ease of speaking. But so to clarify as well, HPH 1, 3 and 4 do not form part of the application, but HPH 1 and 3 have both been granted permission for conversions to residential. A high density residential development was also granted permission on the HPH 4 block to the left hand side of the plan there. So generally speaking, residential use of the site is established as acceptable. So here's a bird's eye view of the site within its immediate context, dated 2025. I've also provided a slightly wider context bird's eye view plan there, again dated 2025. More specifically, in terms of neighbouring uses, the Yodel Warehouse is located to the north of the site. Premier Inn Hotel is located to the northeast. You've got warehouse and coach storage to the immediate east, beyond which is the Asda supermarket. And then to the south you've got commercial uses as well. Residential properties are located on all sides of the commercial estate, as highlighted in that plan there. The Botwell Fawn Conservation Area is designated some distance across the railway to the north, and there's also an emerging centre of development, high-density residential development, located along Nestles Avenue to the east. The site is well connected and located within close proximity to Hayes Town Centre. It is only an 8-minute walk to the News, Hayes and Harlington station. There are also connections to the canal and local amenities as shown there. It is important to note that the emerging context includes high density residential developments and tall buildings within the townscape. So this is the context that the proposal will sit within. Also just to note that there is a parking management scheme in the area, so the area is subject to parking controls. In terms of pictures, this is HPH2. This is one of the buildings to be demolished. This is HPH5, again proposed to be demolished. This is both of those buildings in context, HPH2 on the left, 5 on the right. This is the multi-storey car park, again proposed to be demolished, and then in context again with 5 on the left and the car park on the right. This is HPH1, which I mentioned earlier. It's outside of the application scope, but it does have permission to be converted from offices to residential. HPH3, shown on the left there, that is an existing lawful set of residential units, again converted from offices to residential. The vacant space of land to the left in front of that is also the HPH4 plot, which had permission for residential that I referenced earlier. So the application seeks outline planning permission with all matters reserved, excluding access, for demolition of existing buildings above basement level and a phased delivery of residential development, including flexible commercial community floor space, new public realm and associated works. Whilst the illustrative scheme is for 650 units, the maximum development on the site could deliver 673 units. The housing mix is secured by condition 6 proposed, including provision for at least 15% 3-bed family units. The residential blocks range from 3, 6, 8, 10 and 11 stories in height, including denser urban residential blocks and some townhouses. This is the phasing strategy. In essence, phase 1 comprises construction of blocks A on the surface car park land to the north, including a gateway public realm area. Phase 2 is for the demolition of HPH2 and construction of block B within the centre of the site. Again, works include narrowing of the Millington Road and creation of public realm spaces, and then phase 3 is demolition of HPH5 and the multi-storey car park, and construction of blocks C and D, shown on the right hand side there. Again, public realm space is included within this phase. So the design code, because it's an outline application, the design code is used. It establishes design principles that development must follow as part of the reserved matters application process. So the design code proposed is intended to deliver a high quality development covering massing, active frontages, play space, drainage, biodiversity, urban greening and parking strategy amongst other things. Parameter plans sit alongside the design code and fix land uses, maximum building footprints, basement zones, movement routes, open space layout, trees, and building heights. This is the land use parameter plan, which fixes the residential use of the buildings, save for blocks A1 and A2, which would include some flexible commercial or community uses. This shows the maximum building zones and sets minimum separation distances between the blocks and neighbouring buildings. So there is a minimum 21 separation distance to neighbouring houses, including Keith Road, and then a minimum 15 to 18 metre separation distances between the actual blocks themselves. Just to provide a bit more context, this is complemented by the design code, in particular Design Code Rule 3.31, which requires that habitable room windows are carefully oriented, recessed or angled to mitigate overlooking. Together with the parameter plan, the design code secures an acceptable design. This is the parameter plan which fixes the basement zone underneath blocks C and D. This establishes the access routes and delivery of traffic, calming measures along Millington Road and pedestrian crossing along North Hyde Road, across to Keith Road. This landscape parameter plan secures the delivery of three principal public realm spaces, including what is called or termed the gateway space, the social heart, and the nurture garden. This is the trees parameter plan, which safeguards existing trees where feasible and secures delivery of further tree planting on the site. So this plan fixes the building heights, with a variation in heights proposed across the site ranging from, again, 3, 6, 8, 10 and 11 stories as shown on screen there. This is a 3D representation of the same plan to provide a bit of dimension. So illustrative scheme plans have been submitted to show proof of concept as controlled by the parameter plans and design code. This is the proposed basement plan, which would include car parking to serve the site. This brings it to life. This is the ground level plan and shows provision of public realm spaces, traffic calming, the North Hyde Road pedestrian crossing, flexible commercial community uses and undercroft car parking. This is the first floor plan, and you can see there the provision of private communal amenity spaces on the podiums of blocks B and D. That is the second floor plan, third floor, fourth floor, fifth, sixth with communal terrace amenity space shown in green. Similar at 7th floor level, 8th, 9th and 10th floors. So you can see where the highest buildings are proposed there. And this is the roof level plan. So in summary, the loss of the existing under-occupied offices is accepted in principle, and the proposal for needed residential units on sustainably located brownfield land is supported. The delivery of 15% family units is considered to weigh in favour of development. Whilst the scheme has viability challenges, the applicant has agreed and will be required through a legal agreement to pursue all reasonable endeavours to secure grant funding so that the delivery of affordable housing on this site is maximised. Whilst there are some planning policy conflicts regarding amenity space, play space, open space provision, these are minor conflicts which can be revisited in detail as part of the reserved matters stage of the planning application process. Conditions and obligations are proposed to maximise quantity and quality of these spaces, including a revised design code. The proposal would reduce trips generated by the site and would encourage more sustainable forms of transport through delivery of the North Hyde Road crossing, referenced before, and to boot, you got contributions towards active travel zone measures and bus service enhancements. Planning obligations are also proposed to secure a healthcare contribution, air quality contribution, carbon offset contribution and public open space contribution, in addition to the transport contributions referenced already. Parking permit restrictions are also proposed, and an employment strategy and construction training obligations are proposed. For the reasons set out within the report, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions, legal agreement and stage 2 referral to the Greater London Authority. I pass back to you, Jay.
Well done, Michael. It's a good one. I like things like this. Can you just explain to the committee before I open to the floor about the grant funding element of it? So, because it is quite complicated, and I think it'd be good for the committee to understand that. If that's okay with you.
So, so the application is supported by a viability assessment, which has been reviewed by council officers, the GLA, and an independent third-party review on behalf of the council. It's basically concluded that a 100% private residential scheme, i.e. including no affordable units, would in fact generate a deficit, whether that's a significant deficit or a marginal deficit. It depends on who you ask, but it is agreed in principle that a deficit is generated as a result of the development, in the main probably linked to construction costs. So in essence, that's kind of agreed between all parties. We also tested a scenario which would deliver 20% affordable homes realised as a result of grant funding, and again it's agreed that the use of grant funding improves the viability and deliverability of the scheme. But grant funding isn't necessarily guaranteed. It goes through its own processes. So the Section 106 head of term I, the first one that's proposed, basically requires the developer to use all reasonable endeavours to exhaust all necessary processes to secure grant funding to realise affordable housing from this site. This could be, you see schemes that flip to 100%. Similarly, you see schemes that only generate 10-20%. But the intention there is on the basis that it actually improves the viability. There is a legal obligation that requires that they run that process thoroughly, and it's only at the council's approval would it be signed off that they would not provide affordable housing on the basis that grant funding has not been secured. So, in essence, there's significant viability challenges here, but we've tried our best to try and get.
Well, you've done very well. I know it's it's like very difficult to understand, but I think it's. I'm not going to make a statement. I better not. We'll go forward. Can I open it to the floor? Who's going to tell me? Councillor Bennett. Councillor Skellett. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I really like this actually, and it's just you see the sign of the times with offices that look pretty new. Some of the construction that are just sort of half empty or not being used at all. And yeah, exactly as Michael said, there's lots of residential occupation and higher intensity use here. My question was just around, there's really extensive Section 106 in sort of financial commitments. I think it was just adding it up, just over 3 million, I think, in total. With the ones for Transport for London, you've got the A312 contribution of up to 54,640, and the bus service enhancement contribution up to 598. How do we define? Is it for Transport for London to decide how much in total, and how much free rein are they given as to where they spend it? So, is this 598 going to fund a bus route that's going to run right past this development, or could they kind of say, actually, we're going to use it elsewhere in the borough?
Or could we ring-fence it? Or could we ring-fence it? Maybe I'll get legal on this if you can't.
Thank you, Councillor. Good question. My understanding is we'd take the money from the developer and we'd give it to Transport for London, and they would be the ones implementing the stuff on the ground that should result in a positive enhancement as proposed here. The council does have a service level agreement with TfL, so to my understanding, they would have to actively report back what has happened within certain time frames, and we would, in other words, there is a monitoring process which should realise benefit from the scheme, and the still tests are that this mitigation, this money is required to mitigate the harms caused by this development. So, my understanding is it would benefit the local area.
Can I just add, Chair, but they will be ultimately responsible for the final designs. So the ball is in their court once obviously finance is achieved. But
Yeah. Okay. But at least it'd be spent where we want it to be spent. That's
yes,
that's
well,
what we want.
yeah.
That's the whole idea. We know what the mayor does with the money.
Yes.
Councillor Gohill, sorry, Councillor Gaelic and then Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Chair. I want to sort of have a sort of question or request around heritage element, because in reply to it says that it says about the gateway to the new development and about the visual marker that must be provided at the entrance, such as a piece of public artwork or sculpture. Considering that this location, technically not at present, but in the past, was it Ferry Aviation Company, which, I did some research because my daughter years ago, she had a project at school about Hillingdon heritage. So the factory between the wars provided employment for over 1,500 of workers, and until I think 50s was still in existence and producing sort of aircraft. Considering that there's a requirement of a design code, and also the residents made representations to that this development celebrates the aviation heritage or the industrial heritage of Hillingdon, or Hayes specifically. I wanted to ask whether it's possible to secure this requirement by condition, so there is a surety that there is some kind of artwork or sculpture rather than as an option for the developer.
Say that, Mike.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Number 37.
Good question. So the design code does specify that that it should reference the Ferry Aviation Company. I think what you might be picking up on is the shoulds and the musts of a design code and how strict they are. Condition 37, as currently worded, is more general. It's linked to the design code that we've got kind of sitting under the application, but I could propose that.
Can you bring it back as matters, right? So when we get the matters raised, that can bring back. I'm led to believe anyway it was radar that was originally designed on that near that area. They did that, but anyway, that's another question. Yeah.
We could make reference in condition 37 for a strong preference.
Yeah,
for it to cover off.
Yeah, to cover something to do with the
yeah.
company and the aviation, and
yeah.
I'm sure there's in the field over the other side is where they did models to protect. Yeah, they did models there to practice with the radar, inventing the radar. So.
The trial there,
Microphone. Microphone. Oh.
There was an area nearby that they used for test flights.
Yeah.
Which sort of currently became sort of Heathrow Airport.
Yes. I'm all for the history. That's
so
good.
Could we include as a condition?
Yeah, we're just going to. It's not a condition. It's more of a.
It sits under the design code, which is secured by a condition.
So
but there is also there is a public art condition
as well.
37 as well, which could be.
I didn't specifically stop it, but it's a condition.
Yeah,
that could be.
There's a condition for public art, which is 37, and then there's another condition for the design code. So there's two elements there that you're going to 95% you're going to get something. Okay. Yeah. There's always the 5%. They might run out of money. He's over there though.
Hillingdon doesn't have
better not run out of money.
Any strategies or anything.
No, but I think it's a lovely touch. That's what's one of the nice things about it.
Because you've got Nestle and EMI.
Exactly.
Attractive developments.
Got Big Dog and
one of them.
chocolate bars. Yeah. Something different with it. Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Chair. My question, and I know it's a car-free scheme, is generally around parking. Whilst residents might not have cars if they want to live in this space, probably almost certainly have guests. And, in my opinion, a lot of the pictures that have been shown here are a bit cheeky in the sense that, yes, it's a huge development, but it doesn't show the roads almost immediately outside of their predominantly Dawley Road and the bits off it, which are all residential roads, and like highly densified residential roads. There we go. Yeah, so you can see a couple of them there. I know a couple of the roads around there have parking management schemes. I was just wondering what have we adequately taken into account what the impact might be if there are guests coming in, because I really don't think everyone who then goes on to live in that development is going to tell them to park in the Asda next door. They're just not. Yeah, they're just not. So I wanted to ask kind of how robustly we've looked into the expansion of the demand for parking in the area, and what the kind of offset might be on the roads next door. So Dawley Road, Windsor Avenue, the bits kind of off there to the left of the roundabout, so to say, on that image.
Yeah, it's in the heads of terms. Page. No, you haven't got pages on it. Anyway, it's in the heads of terms. Summary of recommendations.
On the second page.
On the second page, residential parking permits, restriction for residents and visitors, excluding.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so
and obviously there is something it's in there. I don't know whether it's in the addendum about allocation of parking, which is for family homes, which we've talked about.
Yep.
I'm going to raise another issue while I know the applicants in the audience. Family homes, not in the tower blocks. Yeah, kids don't want to be up high. We want them down. So, and they've got there's a lovely bit of development there. So, please, Martin.
Just for completeness, it's not strictly car free. There are a total of circa 135 spaces for the residential units proposed, which equals circa 0.2 spaces per dwelling. The parking allocation plan that you referenced there, Chairman, I think it's condition 50, is proposed to be amended, so there's a strong preference for allocation to family units. I don't have the specific design code reference here either, but there is a part in the design code that actually says that the family units should be located in convenient locations, or with convenient access to play space, which in the main is at ground level. So that is kind of captured as part of the scheme as well. But coming back to parking, there is some provision in combination with the site's high P-TAL rating of 4, given its very close proximity to the new Elizabeth line at Hastings-Harlington station. It is very well or sustainably located, and then in combination with the bus stop or bus service enhancement contribution, as well as the general active travel zone contribution that's secured or proposed to be secured as part of the legal agreement, and again in combination with the parking permit restriction referenced at the start. This package of measures is considered on balance to provide good kind of surety that this development won't result in significant displacement of parking on local streets.
Thank you. Councillor Hill, do you want to...
I have another question, but other members have questions.
No, fine. No, go ahead, please.
Thank you. My other question is, and apologies, I don't have like split screen on my screen, so I might be slightly wrong about this, but there are obviously a lot of conditions associated with this, and I might have skipped it. But I just wanted to ask if the within the external consultation, and this is page 56 on my digital screen, so I don't know if it's the same on yours. Affinity Water stated that they'd like an implementation of a robust pollution prevention during construction, and also an incorporation of strong water efficiency measures. I just wanted to ask if those were adequately conditioned, because I missed it when I was looking through, but again, there are a lot, so apologies if that. I just wanted to double check and be safe rather than sorry.
Okay, we'll let officers come back and have a look. Councillor Bennett, you wanted to indicate a question?
Thank you, Chair. No, I was just I was looking through the relevant planning history. I think one of the office blocks used to be the head office of Safeway,
Yes.
So maybe, hopefully your sculpture isn't a supermarket trolley or anything out front. But no, I'm happy to propose approving the application.
Thank you. Yeah. Michael, if you want to come back?
I've got the here.
Here we go, all the digital, and it's still go back to paper. It's amazing.
So I've got the Affinity Water comments up here. Based on my remembrance of what they'd stated, it was all matters that kind of sat outside of the planning process. It was more informative so that the developer makes sure that they achieve all the necessary requirements. There are conditions relating to drainage and water use proposed, or generally speaking. I can reference them.
So, Chair, the reason I ask is because in Table 4 they do state no objection provided the developer. So it's sort of it sounds to me that it's contingent in the external consultation rather than, but again, it might not be within the remit of the planning committee on that.
If you don't mind, I'll let officers find that out and come back to me. I'll let you know by email. I think Councillor Gaelic, you need to ask a question. Come back to me and then we'll sort that out.
So I've got a question around the contribution to the health infrastructure. So I wanted to know if, do we know what kind of facility will it be? And has the site been identified?
I think because this is outline, it will come back when it comes back. It will later on. It will come back matters raised. Yeah. Okay. Okay. It's been proposed. Can I have a second? Councillor Dot. Okay, you second. Thank you. It's been proposed and second. I'll show hands. Those in favour.
Sorry, Chair. Can I get an answer to my question?
No, I said I will come back to you. I'll get an answer from officers because they haven't got the details at the moment.
The reason I ask is that if not, maybe it might be worth adding it as a condition. That was my only other suggestion off the back of that.
If it's not a condition, we will put it on as an informative.
Okay, right.
Yeah, that's planning related.
So
okay.
I don't want to waste time here. I'll let officers come back and then they'll email me back.
That's fine. It's just the part two of what I said.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so I'm proposing second. Can I show hands? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And we move on to item 8. Is it change of chairs again? Whenever you're ready, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is a Section 73 application which relates to a series of amendments to hybrid planning permission which was granted in 2022, which involves development approved in full and approved in outline. This is the site at Avondale Drive. So the original planning permission relates to the demolition of all of the existing buildings on the site, located to the north of Avondale Drive, and the provision of 240 homes, alongside new areas of landscaping, public open space, parking, and accesses. The amendments sought include a series of changes to the approved parameter plans to provide an additional 56 dwellings above the previously permitted quantum of units, alongside other changes to the access arrangements, landscaping and provision of public open space. So this is the site location plan. So the site accommodates the existing estate at Avondale Drive in Hayes, consisting of 3 13-storey blocks of flats which were constructed in the late 1960s, each of which contain 48 flats. There's hard and soft landscaping areas surrounding the site, as well as 2 covered areas of car parking. So this is the site constraint plan. As indicated on this plan, there are no specific planning constraints are notable in relation to this application. Here is a bird's eye view of the site. So the site shows the outline area of the site in red with existing flats and areas of parking. Just this plan here shows the division between the areas of the site which are subject to detailed planning and subject of outline permission. Sort of slightly hard to work out, but from this image here, but it's the dotted area which is in the far left-hand corner of this screen, which is the area which benefits from detailed planning permission. This is phase 1A of the development, and the flats in that permission, the 30 dwellings, have already been constructed on the site and are now occupied. These are the flats in question on the left-hand side. They're the 30 flats constructed under phase 1A. To the rear of those, to the side, are the existing blocks of flats on the site. This image shows a view from Avondale Drive looking towards the 3 blocks that will be demolished. And this is a view from the corner of Hitherbroom Road and Avondale Drive looking towards the west direction. And this is a view of the existing play area on the site, housing and the covered parking areas. And this is a view of the existing housing from Hitherbroom Park. So, starting with the parameter plans, this parameter plan shows the outline of the 2 development zones as proposed under the Section 73 application. So they're coloured in orange, and this is where development may be cited under future reserved matters applications. Developments would not be delivered in zones coloured in green on this, with these areas set aside for areas of landscaping and public open space. The parameter plan includes indicative separation distances between the buildings with a minimum of 18 metres retained between development zones 2 and 3, and within the blocks themselves, the square areas showing the indicative location of amenity spaces, private amenity spaces to serve the dwellings. And this, for context, was the previously consented development zones parameter plan. So the broad similarities here compared with the plan I just showed, in terms of there being 2 development zones in a broadly similar position, although the revised development zone parameter plan that we saw just a moment ago shows that development would be closer to Avondale Drive than was previously consented. Parameter Plan 2 shows the distribution of building heights across the site. So within Development Zone 3, there would be a maximum of 6 stories. That's the area shown in green, or green sort of blue colour in the centre of the site. This would be set back behind a section of the development which would be restricted in height to 2 stories. So shown in the later slides, it's indicatively shown that this would accommodate 2-storey townhouses, which relate appropriately in design terms with the scale of the development opposite the site, which is notably lower in height. Taller heights are proposed within Development Zone 2. This would consist of 10, 8 and 7-storey elements. Whilst development would be taller within this part of the site, the parameter plans would ensure that there would be variation in the massing of the built form, reducing the prominence of the development in visual terms and mitigating the impact on existing residents in terms of daylight sunlight impacts and in terms of outlook. So whilst there would be an overall increase in the taller developments on the site, or taller elements of development, it must be taken into consideration that there are already 13-storey buildings on the site, so there is already some precedent for height within this area. So just to provide some context again, these were the previously consented parameter plans, and this included development of between 5 and 10 stories. So there is an increase in the extent of the taller elements proposed. However, as referenced in the report, the impact on visual amenity terms and residential amenity terms is broadly similar, and insofar as this translates an indicative design approach, the amendments in officers' view are respective of the site context. Parameter Plan 3 shows the access and movement strategy for the site, which sets out the broad strategy for vehicle and pedestrian movement. Parking will be provided at podium level under each of the blocks. So there will be an increase in parking spaces in the revised plans compared with the previously consented plans. So it's going up to 74 spaces compared with 68 as previously approved. However, given the increase in dwellings, the ratio of parking spaces to flats has decreased from 0.28 spaces per unit to 0.25. The impact of traffic generation and overspill parking is assessed and set out in the report. An option to implement a controlled parking zone is included within the Section 106 agreement accompanying the original planning permission. This includes a financial contribution of £50,000 towards implementation of a CPZ. But however, even in the absence of a controlled parking zone being implemented, it's considered that the development would not have a substantially negative impact on highway safety. The amended proposals would limit use of the space between development zones 2 and 3 to pedestrians only. Previously this was available as an area of car parking. So this is considered a benefit as it will allow for the provision of additional public open space and play provision, and will provide direct access to Hitherbroom Park, which was not shown on the previous plans. And for context, this was the previously consented access parameter plans. So, as noted on here, the arrows show that there would have been vehicle access in between the two development zones, which has been lost within the current plans. However, that's considered to be a benefit of the this current scheme. In terms of the hard and soft landscaping parameters, as previously noted, the area between blocks 2 and 3 would be given over as an area of public open space. The hatched green areas within this development zone are shown indicatively to be the areas of private communal space serving the two blocks, which will be provided in the form of courtyards between the housing. As noted in the officer's report, the quantum of public open space and play provision proportionate to the residential space provided would be increased, and on this basis the financial contributions which were previously sought under the Section 106 agreement are proposed to be reduced, given the substantial increase in play and public open space that will be delivered on the site versus the previously consented scheme. The landscaping plan would allow for the provision of substantial new planting, which would achieve an urban greening factor score potentially of 0.52 on the site, which would be policy compliant. And just for context, this was the previously consented landscape parameter plans showing the areas of soft landscaping, public open space in green, and the areas of communal amenity space in hatched green between the blocks. And for some greater context, this is an illustrative landscape master plan showing how the developments could be developed out, taking into account the parameter plans before you. So the parameter plans would allow for the provision of appropriate standards of outdoor amenity space for future occupants, which would benefit from adequate standards of daylight and sunlight, whilst providing as much as practically possible an optimum density of development on the site. So this shows the indicative massing of the site in response to the building heights parameter plan, showing the larger elements of the site, the 10 and 9 story development within the south east corner of the site, the 6 story developments within the centre of the site, and the 2 story townhouses facing the street. And for some further context, here's some visuals based on the indicative plans. So the image on the bottom left shows a view from Avondale Drive. The 6-storey buildings sat behind the 2-storey townhouses to the front. And then the image on the right-hand side showing the larger development and views from Hitherbroom Park. So the report provides a comprehensive assessment of the application against all relevant policy. However, in summary, the proposals would provide an additional 56 dwellings, an additional 33 affordable homes, making more efficient use of a brownfield site in an appropriately designed manner. There will be an increase in family-sized housing also delivered on the site, as well as larger areas of communal space provided and additional public open space. So development would relate appropriately to the character of the area, appropriately safeguards the amenity of existing residential occupiers, and provides appropriate living conditions for future occupants. The proposals are considered to be acceptable in environmental and highway amenity terms. So for the reasons set out in the report, the application is recommended for approval subject to the relevant conditions and the obligations which are set out in the Heads of Terms section of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Right, who's going to take me away? Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mike, as well. Really detailed presentation. I just had a question on the air quality contribution. So mainly because the council's the applicant, and the council would also be responsible for paying this. So it says that the contribution is £135,989 to account for the increase in forecast trip generation in the event that parking management measures are not introduced. But if they are, then a financial contribution is 6363. Now, are they both separate, or is it one or the other? I just wanted to kind of make sure that the air quality contribution will be made, and the council can't just take the easy option and go, well, actually, we don't need a parking. We wouldn't normally have a parking management scheme, but we're going to put one in because it's going to save cash. Or yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, it's essentially two separate options. So if the parking management scheme becomes active, it will be the lower contribution. If it's not in place, it will be the higher contribution. The reason for that being that if it's not in place, it's expected that there'll be a higher number of potential vehicle movements associated with the scheme, given that there's unrestricted parking on the street. If a parking management scheme came into place, it's considered that to be unreasonable to charge the higher number, given that there would be lesser air quality impacts. So it's about a question really of proportionality in relation to anticipated vehicle movements.
Thank you. So I guess there's nothing from a planning perspective we can enforce that says, so if I was the council, kind of am, I would go, based on your report and presentation, there isn't a need for a parking management scheme there because actually there's on-site parking provision. But if I could save 129 grand by putting one in, I would, wouldn't you? Yeah. So I just want to kind of make sure that actually that as and when this progresses down the line, that the right decisions are made for the right reasons.
Can I add something? It's the residents that have to ask for the management scheme, isn't it? So it's not the council imposing. It's the people that live around in those streets. If they want one, that's when our contribution. So it's not technically. It is, but it isn't technically us driving that narrative. I think it's a resident's decision whether they want it. I think that would be fine.
Because it goes out for formal consultation, and there's always some sort of negativity with having to pay for parking. So we've given that flexibility and let the people choose what they want, and then we will obviously pay the difference.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the rationale behind the contribution is that it is a large development in the area and it is unrestricted at the moment, so there is a risk of displacement. Obviously the impact of development's been assessed under both scenarios to be acceptable in transport terms. However, it is recognised that there will be an impact on existing occupiers from potential overspill, hence why we consider the contribution to be reasonable.
Councillor Dott.
Thank you, Chair. Similar question to Councillor Bennett asked about parking. Will the removal of existing parking code creates parking pressure on the surrounding streets or elsewhere?
I mean, the existing parking courts would be removed. Obviously, the impact of the development in terms of the overspill associated with the new dwellings has been assessed, and there's an assessment set out in the report. It's been looked at by the Highways Authority, and it's assessed that although it's a relatively low parking scheme, it wouldn't be harmful in highway safety or amenity terms.
Any other questions? Okay, so someone's got a proposal.
Thank you, Chair. I am happy to propose the approval of the application.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, Councillor Singh?
I'm quite happy to second. Thank you.
Okay, so we've been proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour of the application for approval? That's it. It's approved. Well done. Do you want to get a drink of water now, Mike? Next one. Item 9. That's been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to land at Austin Road. So this is another Section 73 application, which again relates to a series of amendments to a hybrid planning permission also granted in 2022. So this involves development in full and in outline, as per the previous scheme. The original planning permission related to the demolition of all of the existing buildings on the site and the provision of 500 dwellings alongside landscaping accesses, new public open space and the provision of new community space on the site. So the amendments sought under the current application would relate to changes to the approved parameter plans. This includes the provision of an additional 62 dwellings above the previously consented quantum of units, alongside other changes to the access arrangement, landscaping and provision of public open space, and an increase in the size of the community space that will be provided on the site. So this is the site location plan, highlighted in red. So it consists of the existing housing estate in Hayes Town Centre, consisting mainly of mid-rise flats and maisonettes, and a single high-rise block of flats, Skeffington Court. So the site adjoins Hayes Town Centre. It's close to Hayes and Hillingdon Station and is adjacent to the Grand Union Canal to the south. Surrounding development to the east of the site along Little Road consists of two-storey housing of a suburban scale. The land to the southeast consists of light industrial buildings. Both the application site and surrounding industrial estate both form part of site allocation SA23 in the local plan for the development of new housing. A total of 80 dwellings have already been constructed on the northern part of the site and are now closed to occupation. So this is the site constraints plan. So the areas of dark and light blue indicate primary and secondary shopping areas, showing the proximity of the site to Hayes Town Centre. The yellow areas indicate the adjacent industrial lands, whilst the buildings in dark red indicate buildings which are locally listed. In the case of the former chair factory building to the east of the site and the old Crown pub on Station Road. There's also the Grade 2 listed Benlow Works building, which is located 150 metres to the southwest of the site. So it's another image here of the site location plan. This is a bird's eye view plan showing the development on the site, slightly out of date in terms of the northern part of the site, which has since been redeveloped for the 80 dwellings which I mentioned. So these are some photos of the site. So the first image is from the Grand Union Canal Bridge from Station Road, looking towards the site. Skeffington Court is visible in the middle of the image. Maisonette blocks to the front of this also form part of the estate. This is a view of Silverdale Road from Western View, which is a pedestrianised area adjacent to the canal.
This is the view from Crown Close, so the maisonette blocks and the estate are just behind the densely vegetated area of trees to the left-hand side of this image. On the right-hand side is car parking area and sort of back of house areas associated with the Iceland supermarket in Station Road. So this is a view of Austin Road. Phase 1 of the development is on the right-hand side of this image. It's new flats which are close to occupation. Temporary play space has also been constructed, which can be seen in this image. On the left-hand side are the back gardens of the properties in Little Road, behind that brick wall on the left-hand side of the image. So this is the lower section of Skeffington Court and an existing area of open space to the at ground floor level adjacent to the block of flats. So parameter plan 1 shows the proposed land uses on the site. So the application was in outline with all matters reserved. We have a series of parameter plans as for the previous application, which would set out the detailed design approach to the development. So this parameter plan shows the outline of the 3 development zones, which are coloured in blue. So you've got development zone 1, which is close to completion, which is the area within the red line, which is hatched in white on this plan. Development zone 2 consists of 2 to 3 storey housing, which is located to the rear of the buildings in Little Road. So this would be 2 to 3 storey dwellings which are responsive to the suburban scale of development adjacent to the site. Development zone 3 would consist of a single linear block which will provide frontages to Austin Road and Crown Close. Previously, as I'll show on the next slide, this consisted of 2 smaller development zones which were separated by a central access road, but this is no longer the case. The section of the site, labelled Western View, adjoins the Grand Union Canal, and it's intended that this area would be redeveloped to provide new landscaping and public open space. As noted, there will be a financial contribution that would also be sought towards the enhancement works to the canal side area and towpath. This would be uplifted to just over £70,000. The proposals include the realignment of Austin Road as well as the addition of access restrictions along Silverdale Road to prevent access for pedestrians, prevent access other than for pedestrians and service vehicles along the south-east section of the road. So developments will not be delivered in the zones which are coloured in green. These spaces are set aside for landscaping and the provision of public open space. The plans also show the provision of community space, which is shown in yellow, which would be just to the side of the community space. So these were the previously consented land use parameter plans. So the key change to the revised plans would be the delivery of the community space within Development Zone 3, or the earlier phase of development, so it would be delivered at an earlier time. Also alongside the central area of public open space, which is considered to be a significant benefit of the revised scheme. And as noted previously, the central section of development, which is Development Zone 3 in the latest plans, was shown as 2 blocks. Now this would be a single linear block. So, parameter plan 2, showing the development zones, similar to the land uses parameter plan that I just showed. This additionally shows a separation distance between the blocks, which would vary between 15 and 25 metres, depending where particularly on site you're looking. It's considered that this is an acceptable separation distance accounting for the urban context of the site and maintains adequate privacy for future occupants. And again, this was the previously consented development zones parameter plan. Parameter plan 3 shows the building heights on the site.
So the tallest development on the site would be located within Development Zone 4, where the development would extend up to 12 stories in height. 2 sections would also extend up to 10 stories. It should be noted that the maximum height within Development Zone 4, which is set at 71.6 metres, was agreed with Heathrow Airport and was reduced during the application process accordingly to account for Heathrow's consultation response. Within Development Zone 3, the building heights would vary from 10 stories adjacent to the community square and open space, and there'll be elements of 6 and 3-storey developments fronting Crown Close and Austin Road respectively. A maximum height of 2 to 3 stories is proposed within Development Zone 2, facing Austin Road and the rear gardens of the properties in Little Road. So the distribution of height, provision of taller buildings is considered to be appropriate in design terms. This is accounting for the site's adjacency to Hayes Town Centre and precedent for similar taller development within the context of the surrounding area. Furthermore, Skeffington Court, which is already on the site at present, extends up to 15 stories in height and is evidently a building of substantial scale in itself. Furthermore, as noted in the report, there's a clear policy presumption in terms of making effective use of sustainably located sites where this would provide new housing. The height of the development on the site has been considered in relation to the impact on the amenity of surrounding residential dwellings, as well as the quality of accommodation which would be provided on the site in terms of daylight, sunlight, outlook and overlooking. So evidently the introduction of development on a substantial scale would to a degree impact on the amenity of existing occupiers, and the impact has been set out in the report. However, this must be balanced against the need to provide an optimum density of homes in line with the guidance set out in the MPBF. In considering relation to the previously consented scheme, which again proposed a relatively dense and high development on the site, the impact of the proposed development is considered to not be substantially greater than the previously consented scheme as is set out in the report. Height is limited, as noted, along the eastern boundary of the site where this adjoins the smaller scale dwellings in Little Road and where there's an imperative to keep the development lower. Indicatively, the housing within this area of the site has been shown to work without the need for clear glazed windows within the rear elevation, which could otherwise overlook these properties. So, turning to the building height parameters which were previously consented. So, within Development Zone 4, there was a comparative scale of development which was approved, which again was extending up to 12 stories and 70.3 metres in that case. Height across the central section of the site has increased within the amended parameter plans. However, it's considered that this is been appropriately achieved within the revised scheme in design terms through a variance in massing, which is shown within this plan here, which shows the distribution of building heights across the site from the larger developments in Development Zone 4, 12 and 10-storey buildings facing the canal, and dropping down to the 9 8-storey buildings in the centre of the site, the 2 and 3-storey developments adjoining the gardens of the properties in Little Road. Parameter Plan 4 shows the access and movement strategy. So existing access from Austin Road to Crown Close and a section of the access from Silverdale Road would be retained, although as noted earlier, a section of this will be restricted in the southeast corner of the site to emergency vehicles only, as well as pedestrian access and service vehicles. Ramped access will be provided from Western View and the canal side area, and in general the proposals would improve permeability and legibility of access through the site to the town centre and connections to the canal area. So a total of 48 parking spaces are proposed within the outline phase of the development. with 67 spaces proposed across the site as a whole, accounting for the parking delivered within the first phase of the development, which is under construction. So this would equate to 0.15 spaces per unit, which is a low level of parking provision. It's a car light scheme, so the parking will be provided solely within the podium area of Development Zone 3, plus there will be the retention of 6 on-street parking spaces which will be available to the wider public, which is a continuation of the existing parking arrangement, which allows for shoppers to use the parking spaces in order to access the shops in Hayes Town Centre. So, as noted, development's a car light scheme, low parking, limited to blue badge parking, and parking that will be provided for returning residents. There's contractual requirement to re-provide parking for the returning residents of the scheme. A car parking management plan would be secured by way of planning condition. So the level of parking provision is considered to be acceptable, accounting for the high P-TAL ranking of the site. It's ranked between 4 and 5. That's owing to the proximity of the site to Hayes and Hillingdon Station, town centre, and also the existence of parking controls within the surrounding street. It's noted that there will be an uplift in the active travel zone and healthy streets contribution that will be required given the proposed uplift in the number of units. Just by comparison, this was the previously consented access and movement parameter plans, which previously allowed for vehicle movements into the southeast section of Silverdale Road, which is no longer proposed. What's also no longer proposed is parking below Development Zone 4. So Development Zone 4 will be car-free, with the exception of blue badge spaces for occupiers of those units. Parameter Plan 5 shows the hard and soft landscaping parameters. So as set out in the report, the proposals would deliver an uplift in the delivery of public open space and play provision on the site. There'll be the new public open square, which will be delivered in Phase 3, an earlier phase than previously proposed. Substantial tree planting is proposed on site, which would deliver potentially an urban greening factor score of 0.42, which is policy compliant. The existing substantial high value trees along Silverdale Road adjacent to the Chair Factory building would be retained and protected during the course of the works. This is the illustrative landscape strategy for the site, which shows how the parameter plans would translate to a wider landscape strategy. The area of public open space in the centre of the site. You've got the 2 communal gardens between the 2 larger development zone blocks. There will be small private gardens provided for the 2- and 3-storey houses adjacent to Little Road. So it's considered that the parameter plans would allow for appropriate standards of outdoor amenity for future occupants. There will be adequate daylight sunlight provided to the communal areas of open space, and adequate daylight sunlight provided to the apartments themselves. So here we see some indicative views of the site. The first image on the left hand side of the screen relates to the view from Station Road, looking towards Development Zone 4 and the taller elements on the site. The image on the bottom right hand side relates to Western View, looking from the side of the Chair Factory building, again towards the taller elements on the site. And finally, 2 views here on the left hand side shows the view from Crown Close, looking towards development within Development Zone 3 on the left hand side of this image. And finally, the image on the bottom right shows the view along the realigned Austin Road, showing on the right-hand side of the image the townhouse 3-storey elements within Development Zone 3, and on the left-hand side the lower 2-storey dwellings adjacent to the properties on Little Road. So the report provides a comprehensive assessment of the various issues and assessment of the scheme against relevant policy. However, to summarise, the proposals will provide an additional 62 dwellings, an additional 31 affordable homes, and will make efficient use of a sustainably located brownfield site in an appropriately designed manner. There will also be an increase in 3-storey family-sized housing proposed on the site. So the development would relate appropriately to the character of the area and appropriately safeguards the amenity of adjoining residential occupiers and will provide appropriate living conditions for future occupants. The proposals are considered to be acceptable in environmental and highway amenity terms. So for the reasons that are set out in the report, the application is recommended for approval, subject to a deed of variation to secure the various heads of terms listed in the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mike, as well, for another really detailed presentation. I think similar to the previous application, this forms part of the Hayes regeneration scheme. It's much needed, a vast improvement on what is in both sites before. So, you know, as we've gone through the application detail, I'd be happy to propose that we approve it in line with the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Walala.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I have no objection to anything because I've seen one part of the development is being built, so that's great. That's much needed in that part of the world, and I'm happy to second.
Fantastic. So I'm proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please indicate. That's been passed. Thank you very much. I'd like to wish everybody a very good evening and safe journey home. And thank you for all attending.